The Ukraine-Russia war has turned the Black Sea into a battleground, with Russia's floating fortresses, massive naval platforms, serving as critical command and supply hubs. Ukraine's advanced tactics have repeatedly outmaneuvered Russian defenses, exploiting moments of vulnerability. In 2025, a brutal Ukrainian attack on a Russian floating fortress unleashed chaos, reshaping the conflict and beyond. Below is the account of this clash, from a devastating strike to an outcome that shook the world.
On a moonless night in 2025, off the coast of Crimea, Russia's floating fortress, a $250 million naval platform bristling with missile launchers and radar, stood as a symbol of dominance. Ukrainian intelligence had tracked it for weeks, waiting for a high-profile supply transfer. As Russian crews loaded munitions, a swarm of Ukrainian stealth drones armed with electromagnetic pulse or EMP warheads descended silently. The drones detonated, unleashing a blinding EMP wave that fried the fortress's electronics, followed by hypersonic missiles that tore through its hull. The explosion lit the sea like a supernova, steel fragments raining down as the fortress listed violently. Alarms wailed, but the platform sank into the abyss, turning the Black Sea into a cauldron of fire and chaos. Russia retaliated with unrelenting fury. Warships launched a barrage of Zircon missiles, pounding Ukrainian coastal defenses in Odessa, reducing bunkers to rubble. Sub-30 jets screamed overhead, dropping precision bombs that shook the earth. Ukraine countered with anti-ship missiles, striking Russian frigates, sending plumes of fire and smoke skyward. A ferocious naval-air battle erupted, with drones and jets weeding through a storm of missiles. The sea churned with explosions, black smoke swallowing the horizon, transforming the Black Sea into a relentless war zone where every wave carried the scent of destruction. The conflict surged into electromagnetic warfare with terrifying speed. Russia deployed EMP-equipped drones to disable Ukrainian radar stations, plunging coastal defenses into darkness. Ukraine responded with advanced jammers, disrupting Russian satellite communications, blinding their fleet. AI-driven drones clashed in the skies, exploding in radiant bursts that lit the night. A Russian attempt to hack Ukrainian drone controls backfired, causing their own systems to crash. The war escalated as EMP pulses disrupted civilian power grids across the region, sparking panic. Allies on both sides joined, turning the Black Sea into a high-tech battlefield, where electromagnetic waves and firepower collided in a storm of chaos. Russia launched a desperate amphibious assault to seize Ukrainian ports, deploying Marines and hovercraft under cover of darkness. Fierce urban battles erupted in Mariupol, with buildings collapsing under relentless artillery fire. Ukraine countered with laser-guided missiles, obliterating Russian landing craft in fiery explosions. A rogue EMP strike accidentally triggered a blackout across southern Russia, halting military operations and plunging cities into chaos. Neighboring nations, including Georgia and Turkey, reinforced their borders as the conflict threatened to spill over. The global economy buckled as oil and gas shipments stalled, and satellite imagery revealed the Black Sea coast shrouded in smoke, marking a savage new phase of warfare. The attack's fallout sparked a global energy crisis. The destruction of the floating fortress and subsequent naval blockades halted critical Black Sea energy exports, sending oil and gas prices soaring. Nations scrambled to secure alternative supplies, but cyber attacks on pipeline networks worsened shortages. Insurgent groups exploited the chaos, seizing oil facilities in lawless zones. Autonomous drones were deployed to patrol contested waters, while relief ships faced ambushes. The US and EU brokered emergency energy deals, but new militant factions emerged, launching raids on weakened infrastructure. Russia and Ukraine, crippled by energy disruptions, agreed to a fragile truce, but the rise of insurgents and ongoing shortages signaled an unstable future. Tensions between Ukraine and Russia have escalated as North Korea sent reinforcements, supplying troops and weapons to bolster Russia's prolonged war. Ukraine's intelligence operations closely monitored these movements, but in 2025, a lightning Ukrainian strike against North Korean forces pushed the conflict to new heights, shocking the world.
Below is the account of this confrontation, from a swift annihilation to an unexpected outcome that left everyone reeling. On a chilly afternoon in 2025, along a border route near Luhansk, a North Korean reinforcement convoy, 500 soldiers and tanks, moved covertly to support Russia. Ukrainian radars detected the target, and a squadron of attack drones swooped in at breakneck speed. In just 91 seconds, the drones unleashed guided missiles, obliterating the entire convoy before it could react. Tanks erupted like fireworks, North Korean soldiers scattered in flames and smoke. Debris flew in all directions, and the border area trembled. The strike turned the frontier into a fiery hell, setting the stage for a ferocious retaliation. The annihilation triggered an immediate response from North Korea. From Pyongyang, they launched a barrage of ballistic missiles targeting Ukrainian cities, rocking Kyiv with devastating explosions. Russian forces coordinated, pounding Ukrainian positions near the border with relentless artillery. Ukraine retaliated with rapid airstrikes on Russian bases in Crimea, where North Korean weapons were stored. An air battle erupted, with Ukrainian fighters clashing with Russian Su-35s in deadly pursuits. Black smoke choked the sky, continuous explosions shaking the ground, transforming the region into a chaotic battlefield where every minute was fraught with peril. The conflict surged into cyberspace with dizzying speed. North Korean hackers targeted Ukraine's command systems, disrupting communications and scrambling attack drones. Ukraine countered by crippling Russian and North Korean military networks, using viruses to seize missile systems. In the skies, drones from both sides collided in massive swarms, turning the air into a storm of fire. Hypersonic missiles streaked through, Ukraine's air defenses intercepting most, but debris raining down like a meteor shower, sparking widespread fires. The war expanded as NATO allies supplied Ukraine with weapons, turning the border into a multinational flashpoint where smoke and flames obscured everything. The conflict spiraled when North Korea deployed biological weapons, releasing toxic gas into Ukrainian positions, causing mass poisoning. Ukraine responded with lightning strikes on North Korean bases near the Russian border, using guided missiles to destroy targets from afar. Flames and smoke billowed from the ruined bases, sparking panic in nearby cities. Russia coordinated with ballistic missile attacks on NATO bases in Poland, while Ukraine deployed special forces to demolish biological weapon stockpiles. The global economy reeled as transport routes collapsed, and satellite imagery showed vast regions shrouded in smoke and dust, marking a brutal phase of warfare. The strike's fallout triggered internal collapse in Russia and North Korea. Protests erupted in Moscow as citizens raged over losses, leading to clashes between security forces and civilians. In Pyongyang, disgruntled generals overthrew commanders, plunging the military into chaos. Neighboring nations scrambled to contain the fallout, with international task forces hunting remaining biological weapons. Autonomous robots were deployed to decontaminate affected areas, while relief convoys delivered medicine to ravaged cities. North Korea and Ukraine paused actions to exploit the chaos, but the battlefield remained littered with wreckage, with insurgent groups rising. The collapse temporarily halted the war, but new tensions and lingering internal threats signaled an unstable future. Drug cartels in the Americas have become a global threat, controlling smuggling routes from Mexico to Colombia, fueling violence and corruption. U.S. anti-drug operations frequently clash with these criminal organizations, but in 2025, a massive U.S. Marines raid changed the game, putting the cartels on the run. Below is the account of this war, from a covert operation to an outcome that shocked the world. On a moonless night in 2025, the U.S. Marines launched the largest raid in history, with thousands of elite troops storming cartel strongholds in Mexico, Colombia, and Honduras simultaneously. C-130 transport planes dropped paratroopers into dense jungles, while fast amphibious ships hit the coasts. Caught off guard by the scale of the attack, cartels scrambled to activate defenses, but U.S. drones obliterated guard posts with guided missiles. A massive explosion rocked a cocaine factory in Tijuana, black smoke blotting out the sky. Marines charged in, engaging in ferocious firefights, with heavily armed cartel gunmen, turning neighborhoods into blood-soaked battlefields. The cartels had no time to flee, and the hunt was on.
The cartels struck back, using tunnel networks and armored vehicles to resist. In Mexico City, a cartel convoy slammed into a U.S. Marine outpost, a car bomb detonating with a blast that shook the city. The Marines countered with lightning ambushes, using Black Hawk helicopters to hunt fleeing kingpins. A highway battle in Colombia turned into hell, with cartel anti-tank missiles downing a U.S. helicopter, but Marines quickly encircled, wiping out hundreds of gunmen. Smoke and flames spread, jungles burning as cartels torched evidence to cover their tracks. The pursuit grew frenzied, with cartels using narco-submarines to escape, only to be intercepted by U.S. warships, turning the ocean into a war zone. The conflict spilled into cyberspace as cartels hired hackers to attack Marine command systems, disrupting communications and exposing troop positions. The U.S. retaliated by destroying cartel servers in Panama, using viruses to seize hidden bank accounts. In the skies, cartel drones struck U.S. bases in Texas, but American air defenses shot them down in a rain of fire. The war expanded as U.S. allies in South America joined, surrounding cartel hideouts in Brazil. Explosions and black smoke choked the skies, with nighttime battles turning cities into infernos, where gunfire and screams never ceased. The cartels called in reinforcements from international crime syndicates, leading to attacks on U.S. infrastructure in Latin America. A massive explosion destroyed an oil pipeline in Venezuela, sparking widespread fires. The Marines responded with rapid raids on cartel training camps in Honduras, using guided missiles to eliminate targets from afar. The war spread to border regions, with fierce battles in Mexico shaking frontier cities. The regional economy reeled as smuggling routes collapsed, and aerial imagery showed vast areas engulfed in flames and smoke. In a desperate move, cartels deployed chemical weapons, but Marines in protective gear swiftly neutralized the threat, turning the conflict into a living nightmare. The raid's fallout triggered a global crime crisis as cartels retaliated by sabotaging shipping routes, causing shortages of drugs and goods in Europe and the U.S. Nations scrambled to cooperate in rebuilding, with international task forces hunting remaining kingpins. Autonomous robots were deployed to clean up chemically contaminated zones, while relief ships delivered supplies to affected communities. The U.S. and surviving cartels, facing massive losses, paused hostilities to recover. But the region remained littered with wreckage, with new criminal groups rising from the ashes. The crisis temporarily halted the war, but emerging tensions and persistent crime threats signaled a chaotic future. Drone warfare has transformed the Ukraine-Russia conflict, with massive swarms becoming a decisive factor in battles. Ukraine's innovative drone tactics have challenged Russia's defenses, while Russia's industrial production fuels its own aerial assaults. In 2025, a massive Ukrainian drone strike on Moscow sent shockwaves through the region, pushing the war to new heights of intensity. Below is the account of this confrontation, from a sudden aerial onslaught to its unforeseen global repercussions. On a stormy night in 2025, hundreds of Ukrainian drones surged toward Moscow, their engines humming like a swarm of angry bees, targeting key infrastructure in a coordinated blitz. Russian radars blared with alerts as the drones evaded initial defenses, slipping through gaps in the S-400 system. The sky darkened with the mass, and the first strikes hit power grids, igniting explosions that lit up the city like fireworks gone mad. Alarms wailed across Moscow, streets emptying in panic as debris rained down. The Kremlin went on red alert, but the sheer number overwhelmed, turning the capital into a cauldron of chaos ready to boil over. Russia's response was swift and furious. Su-57 jets scrambled from airbases, engaging the drone swarm in a deadly aerial ballet, missiles streaking through the night sky in blazing trails. Ground-based lasers fired, vaporizing dozens of drones in flashes of light, but the swarm adapted, splitting into smaller groups to evade. Explosions rocked Red Square as a drone hit a government building, flames leaping high. Ukrainian operators, remote from hidden bunkers, adjusted tactics in real time, turning Russian countermeasures against themselves. The night air filled with smoke and the roar of engines, transforming Moscow's skyline into a war zone where every shadow hid potential destruction.
The battle plunged into cyberspace with lightning speed. Russian hackers launched a massive assault on Ukrainian command networks, disrupting drone controls and causing several to crash prematurely. Ukraine countered by infiltrating Russian power systems, blacking out entire districts and sowing confusion in defense commands. In the skies, AI-guided drones clashed, exploding in mid-air fireballs that illuminated the panic below. Hypersonic missiles from Russian silos targeted Ukrainian bases, but advanced intercepts turned them into streaking comets of failure. The war expanded as NATO allies jammed Russian signals, turning the conflict into a high-stakes digital duel where every second counted in a storm of fire and code. The drone assault ignited ground battles as Russian special forces hunted Ukrainian infiltrators suspected in Moscow. Streets erupted in firefights, with explosions shattering buildings and civilians fleeing in terror. Ukraine responded with precision strikes on Russian supply lines, turning highways into infernos of twisted metal. Chemical agents deployed by desperate Russian units contaminated neighborhoods, forcing evacuations amid choking smoke. Global economies trembled as oil prices skyrocketed from disrupted routes, and satellite feeds showed Moscow's iconic landmarks shrouded in flames. The capital became a labyrinth of destruction, with every alley a potential trap and the escalating nightmare. The strike's fallout triggered a global backlash, with international sanctions crippling Russia's economy and sparking internal revolts. Protests turned violent in St. Petersburg, leading to a military coup that ousted key leaders. Ukraine capitalized, launching ground offensives that reclaimed territory amid the chaos. Relief convoys flooded in, but insurgent groups rose from the rubble, turning former allies against each other. The crisis temporarily halted major hostilities, but new factions and lingering threats signaled an unstable future.